The distance is wrong. The water is close enough to smell faint, metallic, carried unevenly by the wind, yet the elephant does not move toward it. The ground beneath its feet is firm, marked by recent tracks, some overlapping, some fresher than others. This is not unfamiliar terrain. It should be safe. It should be simple. The elephant stands still. Its breathing is slow but heavy, each exhale releasing dust that settles back onto its legs. One front foot lifts slightly, then lowers again without committing to a step. The body remains angled away from the source of water, as if something unseen has drawn an invisible line across the land. The air is quiet, too quiet. No birds gather near the water's edge, no insects rise from the reeds. The smell is present, but the signals that usually surround it are missing. The elephant raises its head, testing the wind again. Trunk extended, searching not for water itself, but for confirmation that the water can be approached. It does not come. Behind it, the land stretches open and dry, offering nothing but distance and heat. Ahead lies relief. Clear, immediate, necessary. Yet the elephant does not advance. Its body remains tense, weight held evenly, as if preparing for movement in either direction. Time stretches. The sun continues to climb, pulling moisture from the ground and from skin alike. This pause is costly. Every moment spent still draws from reserves that cannot easily be replaced. The elephant knows this, not through thought, but through accumulation, through a lifetime shaped by movement and consequence. Still, it waits. A subtle shift runs through its posture. The ears angle outward, then settle again. The trunk lowers, brushing the ground, tracing a shallow arc before lifting once more. This is not confusion. It is restraint. The water remains where it is, unchanged. The distance between them does not close. Instinct would demand movement. Memory would support it. Every pattern that has guided survival until now points forward. Yet something interrupts that sequence, not fear, not certainty, but hesitation rooted in experience that does not fully surface. The elephant turns slightly, just enough to break alignment with the water. The movement is minimal, almost dismissible, but it carries weight. A decision has been made, even if its meaning is not yet clear. It steps away. The ground crunches softly underfoot as distance increases rather than collapses. With each step, the smell of water fades, replaced by dust and heat. The choice is not dramatic. There is no rush, no panic, only departure. From the outside, the moment would pass unnoticed. No struggle, no visible threat. Just an animal choosing not to take what appears to be within reach. But survival does not measure moments by appearance alone. As the elephant moves on, leaving water behind without explanation, the cost of that decision begins to accumulate, not immediately, not violently, but patiently. The land records it. The body will remember it. And the question remains, unanswered and unsettled. Why would an animal built to endure distance choose to walk farther from what it needs most? The elephant does not look different at first glance. Its size is unremarkable for its kind, its movement steady, its pace measured, but closer attention reveals details that separate it from others that have passed through this land. A shallow scar runs along the left side of its shoulder, pale against darkened skin. One ear carries a slight tear near the edge. Old enough to have lost its sharpness, recent enough to remain visible. Its gait is consistent, but not symmetrical. The right rear leg lifts a fraction later than the left, a delay so small it would escape notice without patience. These details matter because they persist. They shape how the elephant moves, where it pauses, how it approaches open ground. They are not weaknesses, but they are reminders, evidence of encounters that did not resolve cleanly. The body carries them forward, long after the moment that caused them has passed. The land it moves through is unforgiving in its openness. There are no clear boundaries here, no cover that lasts. No margin for error that can be reclaimed easily. Survival depends on timing, memory, and an ability to recognize when patterns no longer apply. Most animals here move decisively. They take what is available when it appears. Hesitation carries risk. And yet, this elephant hesitates, not once, but repeatedly. The moment at the water was not an exception. It was a signal, a deviation from behavior that should have been automatic. The question is not whether the elephant sensed danger. The question is why it acted as if certainty itself had become unreliable. Why would an animal that depends on water choose distance instead? Why would it abandon relief that lay within reach? And more importantly, what happens when survival no longer follows instinct, but restraint? They press into every step the elephant takes as it continues across the plain. The distance it now covers is not planned for this time of year. The energy required to maintain pace is higher than expected. Each deviation compounds the cost of the last. The elephant moves alone, not separated by force, but by circumstance. Others have passed through this region before and moved on. Tracks appear briefly, then fade. There is no immediate guide to follow, no group rhythm to absorb the cost of uncertainty. Every adjustment must be managed individually. The scar on its shoulder pulls slightly as it shifts direction. The leg that lags absorbs more weight than it should. These are manageable issues under normal conditions. Under extended strain, they become factors. Still, the elephant does not return to the water. Instead, it continues forward, guided by something less concrete than memory and less reliable than instinct. The land offers no explanation. It simply allows the choice to stand. This is where the story begins, not at the moment of danger, but at the moment of refusal. A refusal that does not announce itself loudly, but quietly rearranges the path ahead. The central question forms here, whether acknowledged or not. Why does this elephant repeatedly turn away from the safest option? Is it responding to something the environment does not reveal openly? Is it protecting itself from a threat that no longer exists? Or has experience reshaped its behavior in ways that now conflict with survival itself? The answers, if they exist, will not arrive quickly. They will emerge through consequence, through distance added, energy lost, and opportunities declined. Each choice will test the same uncertainty, pressing it further into the body and the land alike. For now, the elephant moves on, carrying its scars, its restraint, and its unresolved hesitation into terrain that offers no forgiveness for miscalculation. The question remains open, and the cost of not answering it has already begun to accumulate. The past does not arrive all at once. It surfaces in fragments, carried forward by the body rather than the mind. For this elephant, memory does not appear as a sequence of events, but as tension held in muscle and timing responses shaped by moments that ended without closure. The scar along its shoulder did not come from age alone. It formed during a crossing that should have been brief. The ground then was softer, the season less demanding. Water lay ahead, visible from a distance, marked by movement and sound. The elephant had advanced without hesitation, following a route that had proven safe before. The approach was wrong. The scent that drew it forward masked another presence. The ground near the edge collapsed under weight not meant to be supported. What followed was not an attack, but confusion, sudden movement, noise, the pressure of bodies converging too quickly. The elephant was not struck directly. Instead, it was pinned, momentarily trapped between force and ground, its shoulder scraping hard against stone as it forced its way free. It escaped. The water remained behind. The scar stayed. Since then, proximity has not equaled safety. The body learned this lesson without language. Approaches slowed, pauses lengthened. Relief began to demand confirmation. Another fragment surfaces later, tied to separation rather than injury. The elephant had moved with others then, part of a loose formation spread wide across open ground. The spacing was sufficient. The pace consistent. Nothing suggested vulnerability until the wind shifted. Sound arrived before movement, low, uneven, carried across distance. Not a threat in itself, but enough to alter direction. The group adjusted. The elephant hesitated for a moment longer than the rest, only a moment, but enough to change alignment. By the time it corrected its pace, the others were already moving away from the sound. Distance opened quickly. Tracks overlapped and blurred. The land offered no markers to reassemble by instinct alone. Reunion came later, but the gap mattered. The elephant learned how quickly cohesion could dissolve, how little time existed to recover it once lost. Since then, separation has not been taken lightly. The cost of moving towards something uncertain now includes the possibility of moving alone afterward. The third fragment is quieter. It involves waiting. At a shrinking water source during another dry stretch, the elephant arrived late. The edge was crowded. The ground churned into mud that did not support weight evenly. Others drank first. Movement pressed inward. Space narrowed. The elephant waited. By the time it reached the water, the surface had been disturbed repeatedly, clouded by sediment. The smell remained. But the taste changed. Drinking was brief, insufficient. Not because the water was gone, but because the situation no longer allowed for certainty. Waiting did not bring reward. It brought limitation. These fragments do not connect neatly. They do not explain behavior in isolation. But together, they form a pattern, one that favors restraint over immediacy, distance over assumption. The elephant does not avoid water. It avoids unverified approach. It does not fear relief. It questions it. As the present journey continues, these lessons surface not as memory, but as adjustment. The elephant slows earlier than expected. It tests the wind longer. It changes direction without obvious cause. Each action appears minor. Together, they reshape the path entirely. The land offers no feedback on whether these adjustments remain valid. Conditions have changed faster than experience can recalibrate. What once protected the elephant now carries a different cost. Distance grows, heat accumulates, the leg that lags absorbs more strain. The scar pulls tighter, as muscle works harder to compensate. These are not failures. They are consequences unfolding. Still, the elephant does not revert. The past does not loosen its grip simply because the present demands speed. Survival has already been redefined once. Redefinition is difficult to reverse. As the days stretch on, the fragments continue to inform behavior without resolving into clarity. The elephant moves forward, shaped by outcomes it did not choose but must now accommodate. Each hesitation draws from a history that once prevented loss, now threatening to produce it. The question sharpens, no longer abstract. At what point does experience become a liability? The answer does not arrive here. It cannot. The backstory explains restraint, but it does not justify its cost. That reckoning lies ahead, in a landscape that will not accommodate caution indefinitely. For now, the elephant continues, carrying its fragments forward, injury, separation, weighting each one pressing subtly against the choices it will soon be forced to make. The land does not explain itself. It establishes terms and waits for compliance. Here, space is open but not forgiving. Distance offers visibility without protection. Wind moves without pattern, carrying scent unevenly, sometimes revealing, sometimes misleading. The ground hardens under heat, holding impressions only briefly before erasing them. Errors are corrected by consequence, not warning. For the elephant, this environment imposes a strict economy. Movement costs energy. Stillness costs opportunity. Every pause must justify itself. Because recovery is no longer guaranteed, shade exists, but it does not travel. Water exists, but it does not announce itself reliably. Survival depends on interpreting partial signals and committing before certainty arrives. This is where most animals fail. They wait for confirmation that never comes, or they advance too quickly toward relief that cannot be secured. The margin between these two errors is narrow. It leaves little room for revision. The elephant senses this margin without naming it. Its pace reflects constant recalibration. Steps lengthen across open ground, then shorten abruptly near depressions where water once gathered. The trunk tests the air repeatedly, not for abundance, but for inconsistency changes that might signal danger rather than safety. The environment does not respond. Heat builds steadily, not in waves but in layers. By mid-morning, it presses against skin already warm from exertion. The ground releases what it absorbed overnight, trapping warmth close to the surface. Breathing deepens, not from panic, but from sustained demand. The elephant adjusts posture subtly, distributing weight to minimize strain, compensating for the leg that lags. There is no dramatic shift, just accumulation. By afternoon, the rules become more rigid. Shade grows shorter. Wind loses strength. Scent dissipates faster. What little information the land offers degrades with time. Movement now requires greater commitment for less return. This is the law of the place. Hesitation consumes resources faster than action. But action without verification risks everything. The elephant understands this tension intimately. Its past has taught it the cost of blind approach. The present demands movement regardless. Between these pressures lies the narrow corridor where survival must pass. The main threat does not announce itself. It does not appear suddenly or move directly toward the elephant. It exists as presence, a shift at the edge of awareness, a scent carried briefly, then gone, a disturbance in dust far behind. Not pursuit. Observation. The elephant does not turn to confront it. It does not flee. Speed would only increase loss. Instead, the body tightens, posture becoming more contained, movements more deliberate. Formation is no longer relevant here. There is only individual alignment, how the body occupies space relative to what might follow. The land amplifies this awareness. Sound carries farther now, unobstructed. Each step lands heavier in the still air. Even breathing feels exposed. The elephant reduces unnecessary motion, conserving not only energy but attention. As daylight begins to tilt, the environment offers one of its most dangerous illusions, apparent calm. Heat softens slightly. Shadows lengthen. The sense of urgency dulls just enough to invite error. Many animals mistake this transition for safety. The elephant does not. Its pace remains cautious. Direction adjusts incrementally, never committing fully toward what appears inviting. The trunk tests the wind again and again. The body remains angled, prepared to redirect without warning. This is not indecision. It is refusal to surrender to surface signals. Night arrives without relief. Cooling is partial, uneven. The ground releases heat slowly, denying full recovery. Movement continues longer than the body would prefer, because stopping too early would concentrate exposure. When rest finally comes, it is shallow. Here, sleep is not restoration. It is interruption. Morning brings no reset. Fatigue persists intact. The environment enforces continuity. What was lost yesterday is not returned today. The elephant rises slowly, recalibrating posture before committing weight. Muscles protest briefly, then adapt. Adaptation here is not improvement. It is survival under reduced capacity. This is the truth the land enforces. Conditions do not improve because one has endured them. They simply continue. The elephant moves on under these rules, carrying its restraint forward into a place that does not reward caution indefinitely. The margin tightens further. Each choice must now satisfy two opposing demands: move fast enough to survive, slow enough to avoid irreversible error. In this environment, there is no forgiveness. A wrong turn does not offer correction. A misjudged approach does not allow retreat. Relief, when it exists, must be taken decisively, or it disappears. The elephant knows this, and yet, when opportunity appears without clarity, it does not rush. This is the fracture at the center of the journey. The land does not care why the elephant hesitates. It only measures outcome. Here, survival is not about strength or memory alone. It is about alignment, choosing correctly when information is incomplete. And in this place, choosing wrong once is enough. The opportunity arrives without ceremony. The ground slopes gently downward, funneling heat and scent into a shallow basin ahead. The smell of water is stronger here, cleaner, more defined. It carries the faint trace of vegetation, damp soil, something alive beneath the surface. The elephant slows, not from exhaustion, but recognition. This is the kind of place where relief should be taken immediately. Tracks confirm it. Fresh impressions cross the basin, layered but recent. Others have passed through. They did not linger. They drank and moved on. The evidence is clear enough to demand attention. The elephant stops at the edge. Its trunk lifts, drawing in the air in short, deliberate pulls. The scent holds steady. No sudden shifts. No immediate warning. The wind is light but consistent, offering no sign of disturbance beyond what the eye can see. This is as close to certainty as the land has provided in days. Still, the elephant does not descend. Time passes in controlled increments. The body remains angled outward, never fully committing its weight downhill. The front feet test the ground without stepping into it, pressing just enough to feel resistance. The basin offers no collapse, no sudden instability. It holds. The opportunity remains. Instinct would resolve this quickly. Memory would support it. The elephant has taken water in places like this before countless times without consequence. Every survival pattern suggests this is the correct moment to advance, but the body resists. A subtle tension tightens through the shoulders. The leg that lags stiffens, shifting weight backward. The trunk lowers, brushes the ground, then lifts again without completing the motion that would carry the elephant forward. This is not indecision. It is interruption. The land does not change. The water does not withdraw. Nothing announces danger. The elephant turns slightly, just enough to reorient its body away from the basin. The movement is controlled, economical, as if rehearsed. With that shift, the opportunity is no longer directly in front of it. Distance increases. The smell of water weakens with each step away. Heat reasserts itself quickly, filling the space left by relief. The elephant continues forward, choosing terrain that offers less but feels predictable. From a survival standpoint, the choice is difficult to justify. Two explanations emerge, neither fully satisfying. The first is caution sharpened by experience. The elephant may be responding to a pattern it cannot articulate, a convergence of scent, ground, and silence that once preceded loss. The body remembers what the land does not reveal openly. What appears safe now may carry unseen cost. The second is misalignment. Experience that once prevented harm may now distort judgment. Conditions have changed. What was once dangerous may no longer be. By refusing the basin, the elephant may be rejecting relief based on a threat that no longer exists. Neither explanation resolves the tension. Both carry risk. The elephant continues onward, its pace steady but increasingly expensive. The distance it adds now must be paid for later in energy, in strain, in reduced margin for error. The leg that lags absorbs more load. Breathing deepens again. Heat tightens its grip. The basin fades behind, swallowed by distance. Hours later, the environment offers nothing comparable. The land flattens into sameness. Scent thins. Shade disappears. What could have been a turning point becomes another missed anchor in a journey already stretched thin. The consequence does not arrive immediately. There is no collapse, no visible penalty. The cost accumulates quietly, embedded in movement that now requires more effort to sustain. As the day closes, fatigue settles deeper than before. Rest offers less return. The elephant stands longer before lowering its body, testing the ground as if uncertain it will support weight fully. Sleep, when it comes, is shallow. By morning, the absence left by the basin is more pronounced. The elephant rises slowly, stiffness evident in the leg that has carried too much. Water remains ahead somewhere, but now it is farther, both in distance and in probability. The anomaly is complete. A clear opportunity was presented. It was assessed. It was refused. The journey continues under tighter constraints because of it, and the question sharpens for the first time into something that demands response. Is this elephant surviving because it hesitates, or is it slowly failing because it does? The land offers no answer. The cost does not arrive as punishment, it arrives as adjustment. The day after the basin passes without incident, but the elephant's body carries the difference. Movement begins later, the first steps are shorter, heavier. The leg that lags requires more time to accept weight, and when it does, the compensation spreads upward through shoulder, spine, neck, redistributing strain in ways that cannot be sustained indefinitely. Heat returns early. The ground releases it slowly, as if unwilling to let go. With each hour, breathing deepens again, not from urgency but demand. The elephant moderates pace instinctively, but moderation no longer preserves margin. Distance accumulates faster than recovery. Scent becomes unreliable. What once lingered now disperses before it can be interpreted. The trunk lifts more often, drawing in air that carries fragments rather than signals. The land offers hints without coherence. Each hint invites movement. None guarantee reward. The elephant continues anyway. Hunger is not immediate, but it asserts itself steadily. Foraging requires detours small, frequent deviations that break rhythm and cost energy. Vegetation is sparse and brittle, offering sustenance that slows depletion rather than reversing it. The time spent feeding subtracts from time spent moving. The trade is unavoidable. As daylight advances, presence at the margins returns. It does not close distance. It does not challenge. It follows with restraint that mirrors the elephant's own. Tracks appear briefly, then vanish. Scent drifts in and out of range. The threat is not proximity, it is persistence. The elephant adjusts posture again, tightening movement, reducing exposure. Speed remains controlled. There is no attempt to outrun what watches. Acceleration would only accelerate loss. Instead, the body conserves, narrowing motion to essentials. Night offers limited relief. Cooling is uneven, and the ground holds warmth long after darkness settles. Rest arrives in fragments. Muscles release partially, then tighten again. The elephant shifts weight repeatedly, unable to settle fully without waking itself to adjust. Morning brings fatigue intact. Movement resumes with visible cost. The first hour passes slowly, each step requiring intention. The leg that lags now dictates pace more openly. Compensation becomes visible in the shoulders, where motion tightens to protect what can no longer absorb additional strain. The environment remains indifferent. It does not reward effort with clarity. No water reveals itself. No wind carries confirmation. Distance stretches without variation. By midday, the elephant slows further, stops lengthen, not by choice but necessity. Each pause extends exposure, and with exposure comes attention. The presence at the margins draws closer, not enough to force reaction, but enough to sharpen awareness. The elephant does not confront it. It does not flee. It continues, adjusting formation to a world where formation no longer exists. The cost of the mist basin compounds now. What could have been restored must instead be preserved. Every movement becomes a calculation against reserves that have already been drawn down. The elephant forgoes detours it might once have taken, choosing directness over exploration, certainty over possibility. This narrowing has consequence. When the land shifts subtly, when scent briefly strengthens, when ground dips just enough to suggest moisture, the elephant approaches more cautiously than before. The hesitation that once prevented loss now delays commitment. Time spent verifying subtracts from time available to recover. The pattern repeats. Opportunity appears faintly. The elephant slows, tests the air, circles without advancing. The moment passes without resolution. Fatigue deepens. By evening, posture changes again. The elephant carries its head lower, conserving energy by reducing lift. The trunk drags occasionally, then corrects. Breathing remains heavy, even at rest. These are not signs of collapse. They are markers of narrowing margin. Night returns, and with it, proximity? Movement at the edge grows bolder. Sound carries farther in the cooling air. The elephant tightens stillness, minimizing noise, minimizing motion. Vigilance replaces rest. Energy drains without movement. When morning comes, the body resists rising. The first shift of weight sends tension through muscle, not yet recovered. The elephant stands anyway. Stillness would invite consequences that movement might avoid. Distance covered this day is minimal. Effort required is maximal. And then, late in the afternoon, the land offers something again, not a basin. Ground, shade, aligned closely enough to demand consideration. The elephant slows, assessing without approaching fully. Time stretches. Heat presses. The margin tightens further. The body hesitates not because it cannot move, but because it cannot afford to choose wrong again. And in that hesitation, something shifts. A sound changes at the margin. Not closer, not farther, just different. The elephant stills completely. And when it recognizes what that difference means, it is already too late to reverse the distance it has lost. The sound does not belong to the land. It is not wind, not movement through grass, not the distant call of another animal. It arrives with a sharpness that does not diffuse, cutting through the heat and settling into the elephant's awareness with unnatural clarity. Metal. The elephant does not know the word, but the body recognizes the pattern. The vibration is wrong, too regular, too contained. It echoes briefly, then stops, leaving behind a silence that feels engineered rather than empty. The elephant freezes, muscle locks in place, not from fear, but recalculation. The trunk lifts halfway, then holds, drawing in air that carries something unfamiliar beneath the dust. Oil. Heat that does not belong to the sun. The scent is faint, but it does not fade like others. It persists. This is not a predator. Predators announce themselves through movement, through proximity, through intent that sharpens over time. This presence does none of that. It remains distant and still, as if observing without participating. The elephant shifts its weight backward, slowly, deliberately, undoing the last step it took. The ground does not resist. There is no immediate threat to react to only information that does not fit. As the minutes pass, the presence clarifies without revealing itself. The sound returns briefly, then disappears again, always distant, always controlled, never approaching, never retreating. This changes the meaning of the journey so far. The missed basin, the hesitation at scent, the refusal to advance when certainty appeared high, these were not isolated anomalies. They were adjustments. The elephant's restraint begins to align with something beyond the visible environment. What once looked like misplaced caution now appears selective. The body was not avoiding water. It was avoiding convergence. Water attracts. Shade attracts. Low ground attracts. And attraction gathers attention. The elephant angles away again. Not hurried. Not panicked. Distance increases from the unseen source. Heat and fatigue remain, but the body accepts them more readily than proximity to what it cannot interpret. The land no longer feels empty. For the first time, the elephant adjusts direction not because of scarcity, but because of presence that does not behave like anything it understands. The rules it has learned from predators, from terrain, from weather, none of them apply cleanly here. This is the shock, the realization that survival is no longer dictated solely by natural patterns. As the elephant continues, signs multiply subtly. Ground disturbed, not by hooves. Straight impressions where curves should be. The faint residue of heat where shade should have cooled the earth evenly. These details do not form a narrative, they form interference. The presence remains distant, but it tracks differently than predators ever have. It does not test weakness. It does not close in. It waits for alignment places where movement slows. Where certainty gathers animals into predictable paths, the elephant avoids those places instinctively. What once seemed like wasted distance now appears deliberate. The refusal to take easy relief reads differently under this new context. Survival has not been guided by efficiency, but by dispersion, by avoiding points where certainty concentrates risk. Yet this understanding arrives late. Fatigue has already narrowed options. Water remains distant. The body carries debt that cannot be erased by insight alone. The elephant is not winning. It is surviving under revised rules with reduced margin. The central question shifts without resolving. Was the elephant wrong to hesitate before? Or was hesitation the only reason it is still alive now? The answer fractures further. If avoidance has preserved survival until this point, then relief may be more dangerous than scarcity. But how long can a body endure without taking what it needs? The elephant slows again as the sun lowers, not because it senses immediate danger, but because calculation has become heavier. Every choice now balances two threats: depletion and convergence. The presence does not intervene. It does not reveal itself. It simply remains part of the environment, changing the cost of certainty without announcing its terms. Night approaches, and with it, a new layer of risk. Visibility collapses. Sound travels farther. The elephant must choose where to pause in a land that no longer belongs solely to natural forces. As darkness settles, the shock does not dissipate. It integrates. The journey is no longer just about endurance. It is about interpretation, deciding which patterns still protect and which now expose. And the question presses harder than before, turning outward toward the observer as much as inward toward the elephant. If survival means refusing what looks safest, how many chances does that strategy really buy? Night does not arrive cleanly. It settles in layers, pulling light from the land without cooling it completely. Heat lingers close to the ground, trapped where the day pressed it hardest. The elephant stands longer than it should before committing to stillness, testing the space around it with small, careful shifts of weight. This place offers no cover worth trusting. The elephant chooses distance over comfort, stopping where the ground is flat and exposed. Nothing rises here to block sound. Nothing dips low enough to collect scent. Exposure reduces surprise, even as it increases vulnerability. Stillness follows, but it is not rest. Breathing remains deep, uneven. Each inhale draws warm air that does little to restore. Muscles release only partially, holding tension as if movement might be required without warning. The leg that has carried too much today refuses to settle fully, forcing constant micro-adjustments to maintain balance. Sound travels farther at night. The elephant listens, not for approach, but for change. The land produces its own rhythm, distant insects, the subtle crack of cooling earth, the low movement of air along open ground. These sounds are expected. They form a baseline. Anything outside that baseline matters. Minutes stretch without incident. Then longer. Fatigue presses inward, dulling edges. The body demands rest, but the environment refuses to guarantee it. The elephant lowers its head briefly, then raises it again, resisting the urge to commit fully to sleep. Vulnerability here is cumulative. A moment too long in stillness can erase the margin preserved all day. The presence sensed earlier does not reveal itself. That absence is not reassuring. Predators announce intent through approach. They test reactions. This presence does neither. It remains detached, operating on a different scale of patience. Its restraint mirrors the elephant's own, creating a tension that cannot be resolved through movement alone. The elephant shifts its orientation slightly, angling its body to keep more of the plane within awareness. The trunk lifts, then lowers, tracing the air in slow arcs. Scent at night behaves differently. It settles. It pools. It lingers longer than it should. There's something persists beneath the dust, not strong enough to identify, not weak enough to ignore. The elephant holds still, recalibrating. Distance is measured not by steps now, but by exposure. Moving would generate sound. Remaining still preserves uncertainty. Time continues. Cold begins to arrive unevenly, cooling the upper layers of air while the ground remains warm. The contrast sharpens sensation. Muscles tighten in response. The body works to maintain equilibrium without movement. Fatigue deepens into something heavier. Thought does not form in words, but pressure builds regardless. The body evaluates constantly. Stay. Shift. Move. None of the options promise improvement. Each carries a different risk profile. The elephant chooses restraint again. Hours pass in fragments. The night stretches longer than expected. Or perhaps endurance has shortened perception. Sound repeats, then alters slightly, then returns to baseline. Each deviation draws attention. None resolve into clarity. At some point, the elephant lowers its body just enough to reduce strain without surrendering mobility. The ground is warm beneath it, uncomfortable but tolerable. Sleep, if it comes, arrives in brief intervals, broken by awareness that never fully recedes. When the elephant rises again, stiffness protests sharply. The leg that lags absorbs the shift unevenly, sending tension up through the shoulder. The body corrects, adjusts posture, stabilizes. Pain is acknowledged, then contained. There is no alternative. The presence remains unseen. This is the long night not because of danger realized, but because of danger anticipated without confirmation. The mind, if it can be called that, cannot resolve threat into action. It can only manage exposure. As the sky lightens slightly at the horizon, relief does not arrive. Dawn here does not mean safety. It means transition. When shapes return before certainty does, the elephant remains still as light creeps in. Movement now would silhouette the body against open ground. Waiting costs energy, but moving costs more. When the sun finally breaks free of the horizon, it does so without warmth. The air remains heavy. The ground releases heat again, resetting the cycle. The elephant stands fully, rising with deliberate care. Muscles protest, then comply. Balance is restored, though not without effort. The night has taken more than time. Fatigue has deepened. Thirst tightens further. The mist basin weighs heavier now. Not as regret, but as subtraction. The presence, whatever it is, has not forced confrontation. It has simply constrained options. As movement resumes, the elephant carries the night forward in its posture. Steps are shorter. Pauses come sooner. Awareness remains sharpened beyond what the body can sustain comfortably. The land offers no signal that conditions have improved. Scent remains thin. Shade lies distant and unreliable. What remains is continuation under reduced capacity. The long night has done its work. Not by breaking the elephant, but by narrowing the space in which survival can still operate. Choices ahead will be fewer. Errors will cost more. Relief, if encountered again, will demand faster commitment than the body may be willing to give. As the sun climbs, the elephant advances slowly into another day, carrying with it the unresolved tension of a night that never offered release. What comes next will not be decided by strength. It will be decided by timing, how long hesitation can still be afforded before it becomes indistinguishable from failure. By mid-morning, the land forces a decision. The ground ahead dips again, shallow but distinct, gathering what little shade the sun allows. The scent reaches the elephant before the shape does, thin, strained, but unmistakable. Water. Not much, not clean, but present. The elephant slows. This time, the hesitation carries weight that cannot be ignored. Thirst tightens sharply. No longer background pressure but demand. Breathing deepens. The trunk lifts and holds. drawing the air in longer than before, testing for what lies beneath the promise. The wind is uncooperative. It shifts just enough to fragment the scent, revealing nothing beyond what is already known. No clear disturbance, no confirmation of safety, no obvious sign of the presence that has shaped the last stretch of the journey. The body remains angled away, habit reinforced by consequence. But the ground here offers fewer alternatives. Turning aside would mean distance the elephant no longer has the capacity to absorb. This is the narrowing. The elephant takes a step forward, then stops. Another step follows, heavier than the last. The leg that lags protests, sending tension upward that tightens the shoulders and shortens stride. Each movement costs more than it should. Each pause costs time that cannot be recovered. At the edge of the dip, the elephant stands fully exposed. Shade lies just ahead. Water, minimal but visible, reflects light unevenly. The surface is disturbed, not by movement, but by heat and insects. Tracks are present, but old. Nothing suggests recent congregation, nothing suggests absence, either. The elephant lowers its head slightly, trunk extending toward the ground without touching the water. The moment stretches, balanced on a decision that offers no clean outcome. Advance and risk convergence, drawn not only to water, but to whatever else may be waiting for that certainty. Withdraw and accept depletion that the body may not withstand. There is no third option. The elephant advances, not quickly, not decisively, but far enough to commit weight to the slope, far enough that retreat will require more effort than continuation. The ground holds. The dip does not collapse. The water remains. The elephant drinks. Briefly. Controlled. The trunk draws in water in measured pulls, never fully submerging. The body remains tense, ready to shift at the first sign of change. Relief arrives, but it is incomplete enough to slow depletion. Not enough to restore strength. Then the air changes. Not abruptly, subtly. A pressure shift at the edge of awareness. A sound, not carried by wind, but by intention. It does not approach. It does not retreat. It aligns. The elephant freezes mid-draw. The presence is closer now. Not in distance, but in relevance. The place has done what places like this always do. It has concentrated certainty. Water has gathered bodies. Bodies have gathered attention. The elephant lifts its head, water dripping briefly from the trunk before falling back into the dip. It does not turn immediately. Movement now would signal position clearly. Seconds pass. Then more. The presence resolves not into threat, but into inevitability. Whatever it is, it has marked this place. Staying will not improve the situation. Leaving will not erase it. The elephant withdraws. The movement is not clean. The slope resists. The leg that lags slips slightly, forcing a correction that sends strain through muscle already pushed beyond comfort. Balance is recovered, but at cost. The elephant climbs out of the dip with visible effort. Posture tightened. Pace uneven. The water remains behind, partially taken, partially abandoned. As distance increases, the presence does not follow directly. It does not need to. The alignment has already occurred. The elephant has revealed itself. The land has recorded it. What follows is not pursuit. It is pressure. Movement becomes more constrained. Stops shorten. Direction narrows. The elephant no longer has the luxury of avoidance. The path ahead must now be managed under observation. Fatigue accelerates. The water taken helps, but not enough. The body continues to draw against reserves that remain low. The leg that lags now dictates pace entirely. Compensation spreads further, tightening movement across the frame of the body. By late afternoon, the elephant slows to a near halt. The environment offers no new relief. Shade shortens, scent thins. The presence remains, distant but relevant, shaping where the elephant can safely pause and where it cannot. The climax does not arrive as confrontation. It arrives as limitation. The elephant chooses a path that leads away from the water entirely, sacrificing certainty for dispersion. Distance increases from the last known relief. The decision preserves separation, but it deepens depletion. As evening approaches, the body shows strain openly, head lowered, steps shortened, breathing heavy even in brief stillness. Survival now depends on maintaining enough movement to avoid collapse without inviting attention. There is no victory here. The elephant survives the day, but it does so altered. Relief has been taken and lost. The presence has been acknowledged without resolution. The margin has narrowed beyond what experience alone can manage. As darkness begins to settle, the elephant continues forward, not toward safety, not toward certainty, but toward what remains possible. It has chosen neither the best option nor the worst. It has chosen the one that does not end everything immediately. And in this landscape, that is all survival can promise. The next morning arrives without resolution. The elephant rises slowly, as if the act itself requires negotiation. The body is stiffer than before, the leg that lags now, forcing the entire frame to move with caution. The brief water taken the day before has slowed the decline, but it has not restored what was already lost. Relief came late, in small measure, and at a cost that cannot be ignored. The elephant moves again, not because the path ahead appears better, but because stillness has become too dangerous. Each step is shorter, heavier, more deliberate. The rhythm of movement has changed, not in direction, but in meaning. What once looked like hesitation now looks like a method. A strategy shaped by a world where certainty attracts attention. The elephant has avoided easy relief repeatedly, not as defiance, but as refusal to converge. Refusal to become predictable at the places where survival patterns usually narrow. But that strategy did not prevent suffering. It delayed relief until the body could barely take it. It increased distance, deepened fatigue, tightened the margin to a point where one misstep could erase everything. The elephant's restraint preserved survival in one sense, while threatening it in another. The central question returns, heavier now because it has been tested by consequence. Why does this elephant repeatedly turn away from the safest option? There are possibilities, but no clean answers. One possibility is that the elephant is responding to something real presence that does not behave like predators, patterns that exist beyond the visible landscape. In that case, hesitation is not weakness, it is perception. The elephant's body may be reading the land more accurately than appearance suggests, sensing that easy relief has become a trap, not by nature, but by attention that gathers around certainty. Another possibility is that experience has distorted judgment, past incidents, injury, separation. Waiting may have reshaped behavior in ways that once prevented harm, but now misfire under different conditions. The elephant may be protecting itself from threats that no longer exist, clinging to restraint long after restraint has stopped being adaptive. A third possibility sits between them, that the elephant is neither right nor wrong, but trapped inside a reality where every choice carries consequence no matter what. In such a landscape, safest becomes a word without stable meaning. Relief can be dangerous, distance can be lethal, caution can save, caution can kill. The elephant does not choose a perfect path because none exists. The elephant continues forward with that uncertainty embedded in every step. The environment remains indifferent. Heat returns. Dust rises and settles. The horizon offers no promise. The presence that shaped the journey does not reveal itself, but it also does not disappear. It remains implied part of the land now, altering cost without exposing cause. The elephant does not look back toward the basin. It does not return to prove anything. It moves on because moving on is the only action that keeps possibility alive. The journey has not ended. It has simply tightened into a new form, survival measured in smaller margins, decisions made under incomplete information, endurance sustained without guarantee. If the elephant survives, it will not be because it found certainty. It will be because it learned how to live without it. And that leaves the question where it began open, unresolved, and uncomfortably relevant. when the world punishes both hesitation and trust? What does the right choice even look like?